She was the girl everyone feared, the girl no one wanted to touch, the girl they called cursed because of a scar she never asked for. But one ordinary morning, as she knelt by the roadside begging to save the only woman who ever loved her, a wealthy businessman stepped out of his car, took one look at her scar, and fell to his knees crying. What he revealed next would shake an entire town and rewrite her destiny forever. Before we begin, please like, share, comment, and subscribe for emotional stories filled with suspense, mystery, and unforgettable life lessons. Let's dive in. Hello, welcome to African Moonlight Tales. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with your friends, and most important thing, turn your notification bell so you can get informed when I dropped another amazing story. Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments. What would you do if your spouse tried to kill you and you survive? Will you take a revenge or disappear forever? The town of Riverside was a place where morning light seemed to hesitate before touching the streets, as if even sunshine feared the whispers that lived among the people. To outsiders, Riverside looked peaceful. Neat houses, tree-lined streets, children playing in parks, neighbors greeting each other over white picket fences. But beneath that peace lived a silence that carried fear, superstition, and cruel judgment. And in the center of that silent fear stood one girl, Maya, 20 years old, tall, slender, gentle, and marked by a scar that ran from the left side of her forehead, curved down over her eye, and stopped at her cheek. A scar that should have only been a reminder of survival. But in Riverside, it became a curse. Whenever she stepped out of the small apartment she shared with Mrs. Helen, people stared as though something dangerous had just walked past. "Stay away. That girl brings bad luck," children would shout, hiding behind their parents. Some neighbors would cross the street when they saw her coming. Others would whisper prayers or clutch their jewelry, as if warding off evil spirits. The gossip grew darker each day. They said she was found in strange circumstances, that tragedy followed her wherever she went. Some claimed she was responsible for the mysterious death of Mrs. Helen's husband years ago. Others invented wild stories about curses and dark omens. Maya heard the whispers. She felt the fear. But none of it hurt more than watching people move away from her shadow, as if simply standing near her would bring misfortune. She had no friends. No one her age would sit beside her at the community center. She never joined the local festivals or gatherings. When she went to the grocery store, people shifted away from her in line, refusing to stand too close. In all her 20 years, she had known only one person who saw her as human, Mrs. Helen, the kind widow who raised her. The old woman was frail now, her steps slow, but her heart was stronger than any warrior. She called Maya my daughter, even when the entire town mocked her for it. "She must have bewitched that widow," the neighbors whispered. "How can a childless woman suddenly have a daughter? And look, her husband died mysteriously. It must be the girl's doing." No matter how hard Mrs. Helen worked, doing laundry for neighbors, selling baked goods at the weekend market, cleaning offices, the town refused to support her generously. Some days she returned home with barely enough money for groceries. Still, she smiled at Maya every morning. Still, she cooked whatever they had, sometimes only soup and bread, but always with love. Still, she prayed over Maya's scar, not because she believed it was evil, but because she wanted her daughter to feel whole. But Maya did not feel whole. Every time she looked into the cracked mirror hanging in their small bathroom, the scar stared back at her, angry, jagged, a reminder of a past she knew nothing about. She would sometimes trace it with her fingers, imagining how life might have been if she had been born normal, beautiful, accepted. She dreamed of going to college, but no scholarship committee seemed willing to overlook the uncomfortable stares her scar caused during interviews. She dreamed of having friends, but no one wanted to walk beside her. She dreamed, even silently, of someone asking her what she wanted to become in the future. No one ever did. Her world was Mrs. Helen, and Mrs. Helen's world was her. One quiet morning, as the sun rose lazily behind the oak trees, Maya stepped out to sweep their small porch. The broom brushed gently over the concrete, creating soft, swishing sounds. Birds chirped, dogs barked in the distance, and the smell of fresh coffee drifted from neighboring houses. Yet the moment neighbors spotted her, their voices shifted. "There she is," one woman muttered to her friend. "Keep your children inside," another hissed. "She's not right in the head," an elderly man whispered, shaking his head. Maya kept her head down, pretending not to hear. She had mastered the art of silence, of walking as though words could not stab her, even though they always did. When she finally returned inside, Mrs. Helen was sitting by the window, smiling softly. "My daughter, don't mind them," she said, patting the chair beside her. "A tree stands strong, not because the wind is gentle, but because its roots are deep." Maya sat slowly, resting her head on the old woman's shoulder. "Why do they want me?" she whispered, voice trembling. "What did I do to deserve this?" Mrs. Helen sighed, her eyes clouding with memories she had kept hidden for years. "You did nothing, my child. Nothing at all." Maya closed her eyes. Somewhere deep inside, she felt a pull, a sense that her scar carried a story no one had told her. Something bigger than the town's foolish tales. Little did Maya know that the truth of her scar, her origin, and her destiny was closer than she ever imagined. And one encounter, just one, would soon change her life forever. For years, Maya wondered where she came from, what her real family looked like, what her true name might have been, and why she alone survived when everyone around her seemed determined to reject her. But every time she tried to ask questions, Mrs. Helen would either change the subject or sigh deeply, as though pulling memories from a painful well, until the day she finally began to speak. It happened one cool evening. The sky was painted burnt orange as the sun dipped behind the distant hills. Maya was sitting outside, sorting through old photographs while Mrs. Helen rested on their worn porch swing. The old woman's breathing was shallow, and her tired eyes followed Maya with a mixture of love and unspoken sorrow. "Come here, my child," she beckoned softly, her voice fragile like cracked glass. Maya set down the photos and sat beside her. There was something different about the air, heavy, expectant, almost sacred. Even the evening breeze seemed to pause, waiting for what would be said. "My daughter," Mrs. Helen began, "you have carried a burden for too long. It's time you know the truth of how you came into my life." Maya's heart fluttered. She leaned closer, barely breathing. "I was not always alone," the widow continued. "I had a husband, my Robert. He was a good man. We were middle class, but happy. For many years, we prayed for a child, but none came." She swallowed hard, hands trembling slightly. Then one night, everything changed. Maya listened in silence, her breath catching as the story unfolded. It was 18 years ago. The storm that night was unlike any the region had ever seen. Angry, relentless, whipping through the streets like a raging monster. The thunder cracked loudly enough to shake the windows, and lightning split the sky in violent flashes. Mrs. Helen had been sitting by the fireplace, waiting for her husband to return from a business trip to the next city. But when the storm grew worse, fear gripped her heart. "I remember praying," she said softly. "God, let him return safely." But the storm answered with thunder instead. Hours passed. The rain refused to stop, and the highway that connected Riverside to the neighboring city became a deadly path of flooding water, fallen trees, and zero visibility. Then came a sound, a terrible crash, far away but unmistakable. Metal twisting, glass shattering, screams swallowed by the storm. "I knew something terrible had happened," the widow whispered. "So I grabbed my raincoat, took a flashlight, and ran into the night." Her feet splashed through puddles with every step. The flashlight beam flickered wildly, threatening to die, but she held it close, following the echoes of the crash until she reached a sharp curve near the old bridge. There, lying on its side in a shallow ravine, was a tour bus, windows shattered, smoke rising from the engine, the front crushed like crumpled paper. "At first," she said, voice breaking, "I feared the worst. I saw bodies, lifeless bodies scattered in the mud. Men, women, even children." Maya's breath hitched. "The flashlight shook in my hands," Mrs. Helen continued. "And then I saw a small movement, just a tiny arm, trembling." She set the flashlight down and rushed forward. There she was, a little girl, no more than 3 years old, soaked in rain, blood on her face, lying beside a broken seat. Her tiny fingers were reaching out as if pleading for help. Tears gathered in the old widow's eyes. I carried you in my arms. You were breathing barely. Your face was wounded. The scar that people now fear so much was fresh and bleeding. I pressed you against my chest to keep you warm. Maya felt tears slipping down her cheeks. "What about the others?" she asked in a small voice. "They were gone," Mrs. Helen whispered. "All of them. I searched every corner of that bus. Not one survived, except you." The widow inhaled shakily. "I waited for hours by the roadside, hoping someone would come, that maybe your family would return for you. But no one came. No cries for help, no search parties, just the storm swallowing everything." She paused, and when the rain finally stopped, I realized God had placed you in my hands. Whether I understood it or not, you were meant to live. Maya wiped her eyes, overwhelmed. "I took you home," the old woman continued. "Robert returned the next day, and though we had little, he agreed we would raise you as our own." A warm tear slid down Maya's face. "But why didn't you tell the town?" "I did," she said sadly. "But instead of compassion, they turned their fear toward you. They said, 'A child who survives what kills everyone else must be cursed.' They called you an omen." She shook her head. "I tried to defend you, but then Robert fell sick. Very sick. Within 3 months, he was gone." She lowered her voice. "That was when the town decided the worst. They said you killed him, that you brought death into my home. They call me foolish for keeping you." Maya gasped, covering her mouth. "I lost everything, my child. Friends, neighbors, even customers. But I never regretted saving you. Not once. Why, Helen? Why go through all that suffering for me?" Maya whispered, her voice shaking. A weak smile touched the old woman's lips. "Because love is not born from blood. It is born from mercy. And that night, the storm brought you into my life for a reason." Maya broke into soft sobs and leaned her head on the widow's lap. The story pierced her heart deeply. She finally understood why Mrs. Helen had always looked at her with a mixture of pain, pride, and fear. Pain for the life lost, pride for the child saved, and fear that the world would one day take her away. "Forgive me," the widow whispered, caressing her hair. "Forgive me for waiting so long to tell you." Maya shook her head, tears falling freely. "You saved me. You loved me. You gave me life. I owe you everything." Mrs. Helen smiled weakly. But deep inside Maya, something shifted. The scar she once hated now carried meaning. A story of survival, love, loss, and destiny. Yet she had no idea that this scar, this painful reminder of her unknown past, would soon become the bridge that reconnected her to a world she never knew existed. A world of wealth, a world of power, a world where a businessman still searched for the daughter he lost on the very night she was found. The truth of her past lingered in Maya's mind long after Mrs. Helen finished speaking. The story felt like a weight lifted and a heavier burden placed at the same time. Relief that she wasn't cursed, sorrow for the lives lost, and fear of the destiny she couldn't yet understand. For days, she walked through town feeling like a different person. Every whisper, every mocking stare, every insult cut deeper than before. Now that she knew, she had once belonged to a family who had loved her somewhere. But despite the emotional storm inside her, life went on as usual in Riverside. She did laundry, cleaned their apartment, helped Mrs. Helen with her baking business, and accompanied her to the weekend market whenever they had goods to sell. Mrs. Helen, however, did not seem herself. She coughed more often, spoke less, and her once energetic steps became slow and shaky. At first, Maya believed it was just exhaustion. After all, the old woman had lived a hard life, poverty, rejection, years of manual labor. But soon the signs became too clear to ignore. One morning, Maya woke to find the widow still lying in bed, staring at the ceiling with vacant eyes. Her breathing was shallow. Her lips were pale. "Helen," Maya whispered, kneeling beside her. "You didn't sleep well?" The old woman forced a weak smile. "It's nothing, my child. Just age reminding me I'm still human." But as she tried to sit up, a sharp pain seized her chest. She winced and slumped back. "Helen!" Maya cried, her heart pounding. "Please rest. Don't move." Mrs. Helen closed her eyes and nodded weakly. "Maybe you're right." Maya rushed to the kitchen to fetch water. The morning sun had barely risen, yet sweat clung to her skin. She carried the glass awkwardly, her hands trembling. Her mind raced. How long had Helen been suffering in silence? Had she been hiding this illness the same way she hid the truth of the accident? How could Maya, who owed this woman everything, fail to notice? When she returned, Mrs. Helen sat up weakly, trying to organize the ingredients for her baking with shaky hands. "No, Helen," Maya said softly, taking the bowl away. "Please let me do it." The old widow sighed. "We need something to sell today. There's barely any flour left. If we don't work, we won't eat." The word stabbed at Maya. Poverty was no stranger to them. But hearing it spoken while the woman's body clearly battled sickness broke her heart. She quickly prepared what little they had, some cookies and small cakes, all the while watching Mrs. Helen from the corner of her eye. The old woman's shoulders sagged. Her eyes dimmed. Her cough grew worse. By noon, she could barely stand. Maya rushed to support her. "Helen, please let me take you to the clinic." "No," the widow whispered, gripping her hand. "You know how they treat us. They won't help the woman who raised the curse girl. They'll only take our last dollars and blame my sickness on you." Tears pooled in Maya's eyes. "Helen, I can't lose you. You're all I have." The old woman stroked her cheek gently. "And you're all I have. But don't fear, my daughter. Sickness is a visitor. Sometimes it comes quietly, but we send it away." But even as she said it, her head drooped and she leaned completely on Maya for support. The following day, Mrs. Helen could not rise from her bed at all. Maya cooked soup in hopes it would strengthen her, but the widow only managed a few spoonfuls before turning away. She was breathing harder now, sweating despite the cool morning breeze. Her fingers trembled when she reached for Maya's hand. "My child, I'm tired." "No, Helen," Maya whispered. "Please don't say that. I just need rest," she murmured, forcing a smile. But Maya knew better. She knew the frail body in her arms was breaking down. The reality struck her like a blow. If she didn't find help, real help, Mrs. Helen could die. Yet where would help come from in Riverside? No one cared for them. The neighbors avoided their apartment. Even the local pharmacy owner had once refused to serve them, saying Maya's presence made him uncomfortable. Some townspeople whispered loudly whenever Maya passed by, "Sickness has finally caught the witch's keeper." Others even laughed. That old woman protected a cursed child. Now fate has taken its payment. Maya heard it all. She felt each word like fire burning in her skin, but she refused to break. She wiped her tears that night and knelt beside the old woman's bed, praying with everything inside her. "God, please," she whispered, "don't take the only person who ever loved me. Don't let them be right. Don't leave me alone." Mrs. Helen stirred weakly, her hand searching for Maya's. "My child." "Yes, Helen. You are stronger than you think, stronger than the world knows." Maya swallowed her sob. "But I can't do this alone." "You're not alone," the widow whispered. "You have God and destiny, and I believe one day you will know why you survived that accident." Her voice faded into silence. Maya held her hand all night, watching the old woman's chest rise and fall with painful effort. Not once did she sleep. By morning, she made a decision. She could no longer wait for miracles in Riverside. She wrapped Mrs. Helen in warm blankets, placed water beside her, and kissed her forehead gently. Then she tied her scarf and stepped out into the town with purpose. A purpose carved from love, fear, and desperation. She would go to the business district downtown. She would beg, not in Riverside where they knew her face, but in the commercial area where strangers passed daily, people who didn't know her scar or her story, people who might show kindness. She walked for blocks under the rising sun, dust coating her sneakers, heart pounding with hope and shame. She reached the busy downtown street corner and sat near a row of shops, clutching a small paper cup. The wind carried the smells of coffee, fresh bread, and perfume from nearby stores. Professionals rushed past in business attire. Delivery trucks honked. Music played from open cafes. But Maya's voice was small, trembling, desperate. "Please help me. My mother is very sick. Please, anything. Anything you can give." Some ignored her. Some stared. Some shook their heads and walked away. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. For Mrs. Helen, she would swallow every insult, every humiliation. And she had no idea that among the hundreds of people in that busy district, one man, one wealthy businessman, was just moments away from laying eyes on her scar and finding the daughter he thought he lost forever. The downtown business district was alive, bustling with professionals in sharp suits, taxis honking, food vendors calling out their specials, and the constant hum of commerce filling the air. The morning sun sat high in the sky, glistening off glass buildings and illuminating the organized chaos. But in the middle of this noisy world sat a girl who carried silence like a cloak. Maya. Her paper cup lay before her, nearly empty. Her fingers kept brushing away tears before they could fall. Every time she opened her mouth to beg, shame rose like a knot in her throat. She had never begged before, but Mrs. Helen's life depended on it. "Please, anything you can give," she whispered whenever someone passed. Most barely spared her a glance. The ones who did looked at her scar for too long, their faces twisting with discomfort before they walked away hurriedly. Still, she stayed. Every second she spent there, the sun grew hotter, burning her skin and tightening her throat with thirst. But she remained rooted to the spot, refusing to give up. Her mother needed her. A few blocks away, at the entrance of the financial district, a black luxury sedan rolled steadily through the traffic. Behind it followed two more vehicles, a small convoy, simple yet unmistakably belonging to someone important. Inside the lead car sat James Richardson, one of the wealthiest businessmen in the region. A man with silver-streaked hair, expensive suits, and a reputation for building his investment company from nothing into a billion-dollar empire. To the public, he was the CEO of Richardson Capital. To those who truly knew him, he was a man with a heart scar by tragedy. It had been 18 years since the accident that shattered his world. 18 years since he lost his beloved wife. 18 years since he last saw his daughter. The officials had said everyone in the bus died. Their bodies had been burned beyond recognition, except for the few who were identified through personal belongings. They never found his daughter's remains. He mourned for years. Then slowly, painfully, he accepted the truth, or at least tried to. But every night, the memory returned. The last moment he saw his daughter, blood on her tiny face, a deep injury on the left side where shattered glass had slashed her skin. The scar. The unforgettable scar. His driver glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "Sir, we should arrive at the office in 10 minutes. James nodded, adjusting his tie. Today was important. A board meeting about a major acquisition, contracts worth millions. But as they approached the downtown area, traffic slowed dramatically. "Hold on," the driver muttered. "Looks like congestion ahead." James sighed. "Take the side street. We'll pass faster that way." The driver obeyed, turning onto the very street where Maya sat. The convoy crawled forward, and then fate intervened. Maya had lowered her head, exhausted, when she heard footsteps approaching. She looked up hopefully, but the person walked past without even glancing down. She didn't see the convoy until the lead sedan stopped right beside her. James looked out the window absently at first, until he saw a young woman sitting alone by the curb. Her posture, her loneliness, her trembling fingers, something tugged at him. "Stop the car," he said suddenly. The driver hesitated. "Sir, we're running late." "I said stop." The entire convoy halted. James opened the door and stepped out, ignoring the startled looks of passers-by. His security personnel immediately moved to flank him, but he raised a hand to keep them back. He approached the girl slowly. Maya didn't notice him until a shadow fell over her. She lifted her head, and the world froze. The moment her eyes met his, she felt a jolt. Something in this man's gaze was different. Not fear, not disgust, something deeper, something searching. But for James, everything inside him shattered. The scar, That unmistakable scar running down the left side of her face, curved in the exact same pattern, almost identical to the wound he saw on his daughter 18 years ago. His breath caught. He staggered backward, hand clutching his chest. His security men rushed forward in alarm, but he waved them away, eyes still locked on the girl. Maya panicked. "Sir, I'm sorry. Please, I didn't mean to frighten you." "Your face," he whispered, stepping closer. "That scar, how did you get it?" Maya blinked. No stranger had ever spoken to her gently before. I don't know, sir. My mother said she found me like this after an accident." Her words hit him like lightning. An accident. A child found. A scarred face. He swallowed hard, fighting the tremor in his voice. "Your mother? Who is she? Where is she?" Maya clutched her cup nervously. "She's sick, sir. Very sick. That's why I came here to beg." Her voice cracked with shame. Something broke inside him. He knelt. Right there on the busy sidewalk, the billionaire dropped to his knees before a poor beggar girl. Passers-by gasped. Professionals stopped walking. People stared in disbelief. James's eyes filled with tears as he studied the scar more closely, memories rushing back. His daughter crying softly in the bus. The smell of smoke. The flash of broken glass. "Child," he whispered, voice trembling. "What is your name?" "Maya." His chest tightened painfully. "My daughter's name was Emma," he murmured. "But I called her my little star. She was only 3 when the accident happened." Maya's eyes widened. He raised a shaking hand, hesitating, then gently touched near her scar. "It can't be. It can't be." "But, sir," Maya whispered, confused. "Do you know me?" His voice broke. "I might." The crowd murmured louder now, amazed at the sight of a wealthy businessman kneeling before a homeless girl. He composed himself, wiping his tears quickly. "Please," he said softly, "take me to your mother. I must speak with her." Maya hesitated. "She's very ill, sir, and we live far from here. It's not a place someone like you should." He shook his head firmly. "My child, if there's even a chance, just a chance, that you are who I think you are, then I must go." Maya searched his eyes. They were full of sincerity, pain, and something she had never seen directed at her before. Recognition, hope, desperate longing. She nodded slowly. I will take you." Without hesitation, he stood and signaled to his convoy. "We are going to Riverside." The driver's eyes widened. "Sir, that's across town." "I said we are going." Security men moved into formation immediately. James opened the back door of the sedan and gestured to Maya. "Get in," he said gently. Maya froze. Never in her life had she touched a car like this, let alone been invited inside. The townspeople often said her presence brought misfortune. But here was a billionaire asking her to enter his world. She stepped in carefully. The door closed behind her. As the convoy began to move toward Riverside, Maya pressed her palms together nervously while James stared at her face with a mix of fear and hope. He had spent 18 years believing his daughter died. But what if fate had returned her? What if the scar he mourned for years was the same scar now sitting beside him, breathing alive? He took a deep breath and whispered to himself, "Let her be mine, dear God. Let her be mine." And Maya, unaware of the storm unfolding in his heart, only prayed silently for one thing. Please let him help Helen. 2 prayers rising from 2 broken souls. Destiny was finally waking. The drive to Riverside felt longer than any journey Maya had ever made. She sat stiffly in the billionaire's sedan, clutching her fingers so tightly her knuckles were white. Beside her, James stared at her face as though memorizing every line, every shadow, every angle of her scar. He wasn't looking with fear. He wasn't looking with pity. He was looking with hope, a painful, trembling hope that made Maya's heart tighten. The convoy soon turned off the main commercial street and followed the route toward the quieter residential areas. Trees lined the roads. The buildings grew smaller, older, less maintained. Children playing outside stopped to watch the expensive cars pass. Neighbors paused their conversations, astonished at the sight of vehicles so luxurious they seemed out of place in Riverside. "Is this where you live?" James asked softly. Maya nodded. "Yes, sir. Just ahead." His expression darkened, not out of judgment, but out of guilt. The girl he suspected to be his long-lost daughter had grown up in a place where even basic comforts seemed scarce. As the convoy pulled up to the small apartment building, some neighbors began whispering loudly. "What is happening? Who is that girl with the rich man? Is it not the cursed child? Trouble has come." Maya kept her head down as they walked toward the apartment. Her heart pounded with worry for Mrs. Helen. She prayed she was still alive. She prayed she hadn't left the world while Maya was away begging. She pushed the door open quickly. "Helen? Helen, I'm home." Mrs. Helen stirred weakly on her bed. Her breathing was shallow, her eyelids fluttering. When her eyes opened slightly and she saw the figure behind Maya, she gasped and tried to sit up. Who is that man?" Maya knelt quickly beside her. "Helen, please don't move. This is someone who wants to help us." James entered slowly, removing his hat as a sign of respect. His throat tightened when he saw the old woman's frail form. "Good afternoon, ma'am," he said gently. "My name is James Richardson." The widow blinked, struggling to focus. Even in her weakness, she recognized that this was no ordinary man. "What brings someone like you to my home?" she whispered. He stepped closer. "Ma'am, I came because of the girl you raised. Because of Maya." The widow's eyes softened. "My daughter. My only joy." Maya held her hand tightly. James inhaled deeply, gathering strength for the question that had been burning inside him since he saw that scar. "Ma'am, please, tell me everything about how you found her." His voice trembled, betraying the storm inside him. The widow looked at Maya, then back at him. She nodded faintly, and with slow, shaky breaths, she repeated the story. The stormy night, the overturned bus, the bodies everywhere, the tiny child still breathing, the bleeding wound on her face, the decision to take her home. She told it exactly as she had told Maya days earlier. But to James, the words fell like thunder. "That night," he whispered, his voice breaking. "That night was the same night I lost my wife. The same night my daughter disappeared." Maya gasped quietly. He knelt beside the old woman. "Ma'am, please, did you find anything with her? Anything at all? A bracelet, a cloth, a toy?" The widow struggled, then pointed to a small wooden box tucked under her bed. "In there are the clothes she wore. I kept them, hoping one day someone would search for her." Maya retrieved the box and handed it to him with trembling hands. James opened it slowly and froze. Inside were the burnt remains of a tiny pink dress and a small silver bracelet with the initials ER engraved on it. His wife had bought that bracelet the week before the trip. The letters stood for Emma Richardson, their daughter. James's hands trembled violently. "It's hers," he whispered. This belonged to my daughter." His voice broke completely. Tears streamed down his face as he clutched the bracelet to his chest. The room fell silent, heavy with emotion. Maya stared at him, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. Was this man truly her father? Could the life she thought impossible suddenly be real? Mrs. Helen reached for James's hand weakly. "Sir, I did not know who she was. I only knew she deserved a chance to live." He held her hand softly, tears still falling. "Ma'am, you saved her. You saved my baby. I owe you my life." But he suddenly paused, his eyes sharpening, not with doubt, but with responsibility. "I believe everything you've said," he whispered. "My heart tells me this girl is mine. But to protect her future, to protect her identity, to silence every doubt, we must be certain." He looked at Maya tenderly. "My child, may we do a DNA test? Just to confirm what destiny has already revealed." Maya's breath caught. She looked at Mrs. Helen. The old woman nodded slowly. "My daughter, if this man is truly your father, then the world must know it. Your destiny must be confirmed." Maya swallowed hard and nodded. "Yes, sir. We can do the test." James exhaled as though a weight had lifted. "Thank you. We'll go tomorrow. I'll arrange everything. A medical transport will come for us in the morning." The neighbors outside gasped when they overheard the words medical transport. At dawn, the sound of an ambulance filled the air. Neighbors poured out of their apartments in shock as a private medical vehicle arrived at the building. Many stood frozen. Others whispered frantically, "Who is that girl? How can a cursed child get such help?" A miracle has happened. Maya helped carry Mrs. Helen to the vehicle with James's assistance. Within an hour, they were at the city's top private hospital. Large, gleaming, and nothing like the small clinic in Riverside. Nurses rushed forward, taking Mrs. Helen to the medical wing while James remained with Maya. The DNA test was done quickly, blood samples taken gently, with Maya trembling the entire time. "It's okay," James whispered, holding her shoulder. "No matter what the result says, I am here for you." She nodded weakly. And then the waiting began. Hours felt like days. James paced the hallway endlessly, rubbing his palms together. Maya clasped her hands tightly, whispering prayers. Finally, a doctor approached with a sealed envelope. "Mr. Richardson, these are the results." His heart slammed against his rib cage. He glanced at Maya, who looked as though she might faint. He opened the envelope with shaking hands. His eyes scanned the paper. He stopped. His lips quivered, and then a broken cry tore from his chest. He grabbed Maya and pulled her into a trembling embrace, tears pouring freely. "It's you," he whispered, voice cracking. "You my daughter. You my blood. My little star. You survived. You really survived." Maya broke too, sobbing into his chest. "Father." For the first time in her life, she spoke the word. "Father." James held her tighter, as though afraid she would disappear again. The doctor smiled softly. "The DNA matches 99.9%. She's indeed your biological daughter." Mrs. Helen, now stabilized in a nearby wheelchair, covered her mouth with shaking hands, tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. "God be praised. My daughter's destiny has found her." James knelt before her. "Ma'am, I promise you, your suffering ends today." And so did Maya's. Their broken pieces had found each other. Destiny had come home. The news spread through Riverside before sunrise. A medical vehicle had arrived. Strangers in professional attire had walked through the old apartment building. Maya, the scarred girl they mocked as cursed, had left with a billionaire. No one knew the full truth yet, but tongues wagged like restless drums. "Did you see her get into that vehicle? It cannot be ordinary. Cursed children do not rise. Maybe the rich man wants to use her for something dark. But why then did he kneel beside her?" Speculations danced through the air like dust in sunlight. But far away in the city, Maya's life was changing forever. After the DNA confirmation, James refused to let Maya or Mrs. Helen return to Riverside immediately. A team of doctors attended to the widow, giving her proper medication for fluids and warm blankets. Her breathing steadied, her color returned, and for the first time in weeks, she slept peacefully. Maya never left her side. Every now and then, she caught James watching her with a mixture of awe and grief for the years they lost, all for the miracle before him. That evening he approached her gently. "My daughter." She froze. The words still felt unreal. "You will not go back to that town," he said softly but firmly. "Not after what you suffered. Not after what Mrs. Helen endured for you. You belong with me now. You belong in a home that honors you." Maya looked down. "But Helen, she is all I have ever known. And she will remain with us," he replied immediately. "She saved you. She is your mother in every way that matters. As long as I breathe, she will never lack anything again." Maya's throat tightened. She nodded slowly, tears gathering in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "No, my child. Thank you for surviving. Thank you for coming back to me." 3 days later, Mrs. Helen had recovered enough to stand with support. The doctors declared her stable, but insisted she needed proper nutrition and a stress-free environment. James made sure she had both. A limousine arrived to take them to their new home. Maya stared at the sleek black car, as if it were a creature from another world. She hesitated at the door until Mrs. Helen touched her arm. "Go on, my child," she murmured. "Destiny has opened its door. Enter it boldly." Maya took a deep breath and stepped inside. The ride through the city was surreal. Skyscrapers, bright digital billboards, beautiful parks. Nothing in Riverside prepared her for this. She held Mrs. Helen's hand the entire time. Finally, They arrived at a massive iron gate. Security personnel saluted as the gate opened automatically, revealing an estate so grand that Maya felt her breath leave her body. "This," she whispered, "this cannot be real." But it was. The estate had wide stone steps, tall columns, fountains, flower gardens, and even a small pond with koi fish swimming lazily. Everything sparkled in the afternoon sunlight like a dream made solid. James stepped out and turned to them with a soft smile. "Welcome home." Maya covered her mouth, tears flowing. Mrs. Helen trembled, unable to believe her eyes. "God, you are merciful," the widow whispered. Inside the mansion was even more breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers, soft carpets, framed artwork, polished marble floors that reflected their shadows. A housekeeper escorted them to their rooms, spacious, warm, luxurious. Mrs. Helen's bed was soft and high, covered with white sheets that smelled of lavender. She touched them gently. "I will rest well here," she whispered in amazement. "You will live a long time here, Helen." Maya laughed through tears. They embraced tightly. That evening, James called a small gathering in the living room. He stood before them with emotion clouding his eyes. "I lost 18 years of your life," he began, voice trembling. "And no amount of wealth can restore those years. But I promise you this, your future will be brighter than your past. You will go to college, travel the world, and choose your own path. You will lack nothing." Maya felt her heart swell. She had never imagined such a life. "And Mrs. Helen," he continued, turning to the widow, "you brought my daughter back to me. You preserved her life. You fought for her when the world rejected her. Your name will forever be honored in this house. Anything you want, anything at all, is yours." The widow's face crumpled with emotion. "Sir, I only did what any mother would do." "No," he said softly. "You did what only a mother of courage could do." Days turned into weeks. Maya began her transformation. Top dermatologists worked on her scar, softening it, healing old tissue, and easing the pain she carried for years. But even as her face improved, she insisted, "Do not erase it completely. It is part of my story." Meanwhile, the news reached Riverside. The same neighbors who mocked her now boasted, "We always knew she was special, a child of destiny. Did we not say great things would happen to her?" But Maya never looked back with bitterness. She had risen above them. She had found her true identity. One breezy evening, as the sun dipped low, Maya stood on the estate balcony with James. The sky glowed orange, and the wind carried the scent of blooming jasmine. He looked down at her with gratitude in his eyes. "My daughter." She turned to him, smiling softly. "Yes, father." His throat tightened. It was becoming more natural now, hearing that word, feeling that connection. He opened his arms, and she stepped into them. The embrace was warm, healing, and filled with 18 years of lost love. Mrs. Helen watched from the doorway, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. She whispered a prayer of thanksgiving. The girl who had been rejected, cursed, mocked, abandoned, was now the daughter of a billionaire, was now loved, was now healed, was now home. 3 months had passed since the DNA test confirmed what James's heart already knew. Maya was his daughter. His little star had returned. In those months, Maya's world had transformed completely. She attended therapy sessions to process the trauma of 18 years of rejection. She began online college courses in business administration. She learned to drive. She traveled to the coast for the first time and stood barefoot in the ocean, crying tears of joy. Mrs. Helen flourished in her new environment. The constant medical care, nutritious meals, and stress-free life brought color back to her cheeks. She spent her days in the estate's garden, tending to flowers and smiling more than she had in years. James made sure both women wanted for nothing. But there was one thing Maya still needed to do, one place she needed to visit. Riverside, not for revenge, not for validation, but for closure. One morning over breakfast, Maya spoke the words that had been forming in her heart. "Father, I want to go back to Riverside." James looked up from his coffee, concerned. "Maya, why would you want to return to a place that caused you so much pain?" "Because," she said softly, "I need them to see that I survived. not to prove them wrong, but to show them that their words didn't define me. And, she paused, I want to help the people there who are struggling like we once did. Mrs. Helen reached across the table and squeezed her hand. My child, you have the heart of a true healer. James studied his daughter's face, the determination, the grace, the absence of bitterness. He nodded slowly. Then we'll go together, and we'll do it right. A week later, the convoy returned to Riverside. But this time, Maya wasn't hiding. This time, she wasn't begging. This time, she rode in the front passenger seat of her father's sedan, wearing a beautiful blue dress, her hair styled professionally, her scar no longer hidden but displayed with quiet confidence. The convoy rolled through the familiar streets, and immediately, people began to notice. Is that Maya? The cursed girl? Look at those cars. She's with that billionaire again. The vehicle stopped at the community center, the same place where Maya had once been forbidden to enter for town meetings. James stepped out first, then extended his hand to help Maya. She took it, standing tall as dozens of neighbors began to gather, whispering frantically. Mrs. Helen emerged from the second vehicle, looking healthier and happier than anyone had seen her in years. The crowd grew larger. Faces Maya recognized appeared. The woman who used to spit when she passed, the man who called her cursed, the children who once threw stones and taunted her. Now they all stood in stunned silence. James walked to the center of the gathering, Maya beside him, and spoke clearly. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Richardson. 3 months ago, I met this young woman by chance on a downtown street. What I discovered that day changed my life forever. The crowd leaned in, captivated. 18 years ago, I lost my family in a terrible bus accident. My wife died. My daughter disappeared. For nearly 2 decades, I believed she was gone forever. His voice grew thick with emotion. But she wasn't gone. She was here, in Riverside, being raised by one of the most courageous women I have ever met. He gestured to Mrs. Helen, who stood quietly, tears already forming in her eyes. This young woman you see before you is my daughter, Emma Richardson. You knew her as Maya. You called her cursed. You rejected her. You made her life unbearable. His voice remained calm, but firm. But she survived, not because of you, but despite you. And the woman you mocked for protecting her is the reason I have my daughter back today. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Some looked down at their feet. Others wiped their eyes. Maya stepped forward. Her voice was steady, clear, filled with grace. I didn't come here to shame anyone. I came to say thank you to the one woman who saw my worth when no one else did. And I came to tell you all that I forgive you. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I forgive the names. I forgive the rejection. I forgive the stones thrown and the doors closed. Because holding on to anger would only keep me trapped in the past. And I refuse to live there anymore. Several women began to cry openly. A man who had once called her a demon fell to his knees, covering his face. Maya continued, My father and I have decided to establish a foundation right here in Riverside. We're going to build a community health clinic, fund scholarships for children who can't afford school, and provide support for families living in poverty. Because I remember what it was like to be hungry, to be sick and unable to afford help, to be invisible. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. I also want to start a program for people who feel rejected or different, people who carry scars, visible or invisible, because I know what it's like to be judged for something you can't control. She paused, her eyes sweeping across the faces she once feared. Riverside gave me pain, yes, but also gave me Mrs. Helen. And for that, I will always be grateful. So I'm choosing to give back to this town, not because you deserve it, but because everyone deserves a chance. Everyone deserves to be seen. Tears flowed freely now, not just from the women, but from the men too. Several people stepped forward, voices breaking as they spoke. Maya, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. We were wrong. So wrong. Mrs. Helen walked over to stand beside Maya, pride radiating from her fragile frame. James placed a hand on Maya's shoulder, his own eyes glistening. The mayor of Riverside, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward awkwardly. Miss Richardson, Maya, on behalf of this entire community, I apologize. We failed you. We failed, Mrs. Helen, and we would be honored to accept your generosity, though we don't deserve it. Maya nodded graciously. Apology accepted. Over the following weeks, construction began on the clinic. Scholarship applications were distributed to families. Mrs. Helen was honored at a special town ceremony, receiving a plaque that read, "To the woman who saved a life and changed a destiny." She cried the entire time. Maya spent time visiting families, listening to their stories, and offering help where needed. Some of the same people who once tormented her now approached her with genuine remorse, and she received each of them with kindness. One afternoon, a young girl no older than 12 approached Maya shyly. She had a birthmark across half her face and walked with her head down. "Miss Maya." Maya knelt to her level. "Yes, sweetheart. They call me names too, because of my face. But when I heard your story, I felt like maybe I could be okay too." Maya's heart broke and healed at the same time. She pulled the girl into a gentle hug. "You are more than okay. You are beautiful. You are strong. And your mark doesn't define you. Your heart does." The girl cried softly, and Maya held her until the tears stopped. That evening, as Maya and James drove back to the estate, she looked out the window at the town fading into the distance. "Thank you for letting me do this, Father." "No, Maya. Thank you for teaching me what true forgiveness looks like." She smiled, finally at peace. The girl who was once rejected had returned, not as a victim, but as a victor, not with bitterness, but with grace, not to tear down, but to build up. And in doing so, she transformed not only her own life, but the lives of everyone around her. 6 months after the emotional return to Riverside, Maya's life had settled into a beautiful rhythm. She was no longer the scared, rejected girl begging on street corners. She was Emma Richardson, daughter, student, philanthropist, and voice for the voiceless. But with her new identity came new challenges. The media had caught wind of her story. Local newspapers ran headlines. "Billionaire's lost daughter found after 18 years, and from homeless to heiress." The Maya Richardson story. Television stations requested interviews. Social media buzzed with debates, some celebrating her transformation, others skeptical of her motives, a few cruel voices still clinging to old superstitions. James wanted to protect her from the spotlight, but Maya made a different choice. "Father, if my story can help even one person who feels worthless, that's worth sharing." So she agreed to one major interview, a sit-down feature with the region's most respected journalist, Angela Torres. The interview took place in the estate's garden, surrounded by blooming flowers and soft natural light. Angela began gently. "Maya, or should I say Emma, your story is extraordinary. Tell us, what was it like growing up believing you were cursed?" Maya took a breath, choosing her words carefully. "It was lonely. Imagine waking up every day knowing that people feared you, not because of anything you did, but because of how you looked. I spent years wondering what was wrong with me. Why couldn't I be normal? Why couldn't I be loved?" Her voice remained steady, but emotion flickered in her eyes. The hardest part wasn't the poverty or the hunger. It was the isolation, feeling invisible and hypervisible at the same time. People stared, but no one truly saw me. Angela leaned forward. "And yet, one woman did see you. Tell us about Mrs. Helen." Maya's face softened immediately. "Mrs. Helen saved my life in every way that matters. She didn't just rescue me from that bus wreckage. She rescued me from a life of believing I was worthless. She fed me when she had nothing. She loved me when everyone else turned away. She's my hero." Tears glistened in Angela's eyes. "And now you found your biological father. How has that changed you?" "It's given me roots," Maya said. "For 18 years, I didn't know where I came from. I didn't know if anyone had ever wanted me. Meeting my father answered questions I didn't even know I was asking. But it also taught me something important. Family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who fights for you." She paused. "I have 2 mothers. One gave me life. One gave me love. I honor both." The interview continued, touching on her plans for the future, her foundation work in Riverside, and her message to young people facing discrimination. To anyone out there who feels different, broken, or unwanted, you're not your circumstances. You're not what people say about you. Your worth was decided long before their opinions were formed. Hold on. Keep going. Your story isn't over. The interview aired nationally 2 weeks later. The response was overwhelming. Maya's social media accounts exploded with messages from people around the country. Teenagers with facial differences, survivors of trauma, children in foster care, anyone who had ever felt rejected. Your story gave me hope. I cried watching your interview. Thank you for being brave. I'm a single mother who almost gave up. Your words reminded me to keep fighting. Maya read every single message, responding to as many as she could. But with visibility came unwanted attention. Tabloids began digging into her past, trying to find scandal. Some published unflattering photos of her from her begging days with cruel captions. A few conspiracy theorists claimed the DNA test was fake, that James was using her for publicity. It hurt. Of course it hurt. One evening, Maya sat in her room, scrolling through particularly harsh comments, tears streaming down her face. Mrs. Helen found her there. "My child, what troubles you?" Maya showed her the screen. "They're saying terrible things, Helen. They're saying I'm a fraud, that I don't deserve this life." That, Mrs. Helen gently took the phone and set it aside. "Listen to me. People who have never walked your path will always have opinions about your journey. Let them talk. You know your truth. God knows your truth. That is enough." She cupped Maya's face tenderly. "You could have returned to Riverside with anger. You could have used your new power to hurt those who hurt you. But you chose mercy. You chose love. That is who you are. Don't let strangers on a screen steal that from you." Maya nodded, breathing deeply. "You're right. I wanted everyone to see that people can change. That redemption is real. Those who need to see it will," Mrs. Helen assured her. "And those who don't, their blindness is not your burden to carry." The next morning, Maya made a decision. She would continue her work, but would protect her peace. She limited her social media presence, focused on direct community impact, and surrounded herself with people who genuinely supported her mission. The Riverside Community Health Clinic officially opened 3 months later. It was a beautiful, modern facility offering free and low-cost medical care to families in need. Maya stood at the ribbon-cutting ceremony alongside James, Mrs. Helen, and the mayor. Hundreds of townspeople attended, many of the same faces that once rejected her. But now they cheered. Now they celebrated. Now they understood. After the ceremony, a young mother approached Maya, holding a baby. "Miss Richardson, my daughter was born with a cleft lip. The doctor said surgery would cost thousands. I didn't know what to do." Her voice broke. "But because of your clinic, she's getting the surgery next month. For free. You saved her from a life of what you went through." Maya's eyes filled with tears. She touched the baby's tiny hand. "What's her name?" "Hope. I named her Hope." Maya smiled through her tears. "Perfect." That night, lying in bed, Maya reflected on how far she had come. From a bus crash that should have killed her, to 18 years of rejection and pain, to finding her father, to building a legacy of healing. Her scar, once a source of shame, had become a symbol of survival. Her story, once hidden in silence, had become a message of hope. And her life, once defined by what was taken from her, was now defined by what she chose to give. She whispered into the darkness, "Thank you. For every closed door that led me here. For every no that prepared me for this yes. For every tear that watered the seeds of my purpose." And somewhere in the estate, James sat in his study, looking at a framed photo of 3-year-old Emma, his little star. "You came back to me," he whispered, "and you came back even stronger than I imagined." The journey wasn't over. There would be more challenges, more growth, more opportunities to choose love over bitterness. But Maya was ready, because she had learned the most powerful truth of all. Your beginning doesn't determine your ending. 1 year after the DNA test that changed everything, Maya had fully embraced her new life. She was thriving in her college courses, actively managing the foundation's projects, and had even started a podcast called Scarred But Not Broken, where she interviewed people who had overcome adversity. The estate had become a true home. Mrs. Helen spent her days painting, a hobby she'd always dreamed of pursuing but never had the resources to explore. James had scaled back his work hours to spend more time with his daughter, making up for the 18 years they'd lost. Everything seemed to be falling beautifully into place. Until one afternoon, when an unexpected visitor arrived at the estate gate. Maya was in the library, reviewing scholarship applications for the foundation, when the housekeeper knocked softly. "Miss Emma, there's someone at the gate asking to see you. She says her name is Patricia Wilson, and that she was on the bus the night of the accident." Maya's pen froze mid-signature. Her heart began to pound. "What? She's insisting she has information about your family. About that night." Maya stood slowly, legs trembling. James appeared in the doorway, having overheard. "I'll handle this," he said protectively. "No." Maya's voice was firm despite her shaking hands. "I need to hear this." They walked together to the gate, where security had a woman waiting. She appeared to be in her late 50s, wearing simple clothes, her face weathered but kind. The moment she saw Maya, her eyes filled with tears. "Oh my God, you're alive. You're really alive." Maya studied her carefully. "You were on the bus?" "I was supposed to be," the woman said, voice trembling. "I had a ticket. I was traveling with my sister and her family. But at the last minute, I got food poisoning and couldn't travel. My sister, she insisted on going anyway. She and her husband and their little boy." Her voice broke. "They all died that night." James stepped forward. "I'm sorry for your loss. But why are you here now, after all these years?" Patricia wiped her eyes. "Because I saw the interview. I saw Emma, Maya, telling her story. And I realized I have something that belongs to her. Something I've kept all these years." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, worn stuffed elephant. Maya's breath caught. "This was found at the crash site," Patricia explained. "It was clutched in a little girl's hand, or rather, it was near where they found traces of a child. The investigators gave it to me because they thought it might have belonged to my nephew. But it didn't. He had a different toy with him." She held it out to Maya with shaking hands. "I kept it all these years, hoping someday I could return it to the right family. And when I saw your interview, I saw your scar, I knew. This was meant to come back to you." James stared at the elephant, then looked at Maya. "Do you remember this?" Maya took the stuffed animal slowly, running her fingers over its worn fabric. And then, like a door opening in her mind, a flash of memory. A woman's voice singing softly, arms holding her tight. "Hold on to Ellie, sweetheart. She'll keep you safe." "Ellie," Maya whispered. "My mother called it Ellie." Tears streamed down her face as the fragment of memory solidified. Her first real memory of her biological mother. James covered his mouth, emotion overwhelming him. "Your mother bought that elephant the week before the trip. She said every child needed a guardian angel, even if it came in the form of a stuffed toy." Patricia smiled through her tears. "Then it did its job. It kept you safe." Maya clutched the elephant to her chest, sobbing. "Thank you. Thank you for keeping it. Thank you for bringing it home." Patricia shook her head. "Thank you for surviving, for becoming the beautiful soul you are, for proving that miracles do happen." They invited Patricia to stay for tea. Over the next 2 hours, she shared stories about the other passengers, good people, families with dreams, individuals whose lives ended too soon. "Your survival wasn't just for you," Patricia said softly. "It was for all of us who lost someone that night. You're proof that something good came from that tragedy. That love survived." After Patricia left, Maya sat in her room, holding Ellie the elephant, processing everything. Mrs. Helen joined her, sitting quietly beside her. "Are you all right, my child?" Maya nodded. "I'm more than all right. I have a piece of my mother now. A real piece. Something she touched, something she gave me." She looked at Mrs. Helen. "But you're still my mother, too. That will never change." Mrs. Helen pulled her close. "I know, my darling. I know." That evening, James came to Maya's room. He held out a small velvet box. "I've been saving this, waiting for the right moment." Maya opened it to find a delicate gold necklace with a star pendant. "Your mother wore this every day," James explained. "She said stars shine brightest in the darkest nights. I want you to have it now." Maya's hands trembled as he fastened it around her neck. "You are my little star," he whispered. "You always were, and you always will be." Father and daughter embraced, both crying, both healing, both grateful for the miracle of second chances. That night, Maya placed Ellie the elephant on her nightstand beside a framed photo of Mrs. Helen. Two mothers, two kinds of love, both essential, both honored. She touched the star pendant around her neck and whispered, "I carry you all with me. Always." The past and present had finally merged. The girl who lost everything had found not just her family, but herself. And she was ready for whatever came next. 2 years after the DNA test, Maya stood backstage at the Riverside Community Center, the same building where she was once forbidden to enter. But today was different. Today, she was the keynote speaker for the annual Hope Rising Conference, an event she had founded to empower young people facing discrimination, poverty, and trauma. Her hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the microphone pack. The star pendant from her mother rested against her chest. Ellie the elephant sat in her bag for good luck. And in the front row, she knew, sat the two people who mattered most, James and Mrs. Helen, both beaming with pride. A production assistant gave her the signal. "You're on in 2 minutes, Miss Richardson." Maya took a deep breath, looking at herself in the mirror. Her scar was still visible, softer now, but present. She had chosen to keep it that way, not because she couldn't afford further treatment, but because it had become part of her identity, part of her message. Scars tell stories, and stories change lives. The MC's voice boomed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Maya Richardson, survivor, philanthropist, and living proof that our circumstances don't define our destiny." The crowd erupted in applause. Maya walked onto the stage, lights bright, hundreds of faces looking up at her. Young people, parents, community leaders, educators. So different from the crowds that once stared at her with fear and disgust. She smiled, letting the applause wash over her, then raised her hand for silence. "Good afternoon, everyone. 2 years ago, I sat at a street corner downtown, begging for money to save the only mother I knew. I was hungry, desperate, and convinced that the world had nothing good planned for me." She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. I'd spent 20 years being called cursed, being rejected, being told that my scar made me less than human. And honestly, part of me believed it. Several young people in the audience nodded, recognition in their eyes. But something happened that day that changed everything. A stranger saw me, really saw me, not as a curse, but as his miracle. That stranger was my father, James Richardson, and that day began the journey that brought me here. James wiped his eyes in the front row. "But here's what I want you to understand. My miracle didn't happen because I was special. It happened because I survived. Because one woman, Mrs. Helen, chose love over fear. Because I kept breathing even when I didn't want to. Because I held on, even when everything told me to let go." The room was completely silent now. Your miracle is coming too. Maybe not in the way you expect. Maybe not in the timing you want. But it's coming. The question is, will you still be standing when it arrives? A wave of snaps and applause rippled through the audience. Today, I want to talk about 3 truths that carried me through the darkness. 3 truths that can carry you too. She counted on her fingers. First, your worth is not determined by other people's opinions. I spent years believing I was worthless because people treated me that way. But the truth is, their fears said more about them than it ever said about me. Your value was set before you were born. Don't let temporary people assign permanent labels. More applause. Second, pain is not wasted if you let it teach you. Every insult, every rejection, every lonely night prepared me for this moment. My pain became my purpose. Your scars, whatever they are, can become your story. And your story can become someone else's survival guide. Several people in the audience were crying now. Third, love is stronger than circumstance. Mrs. Helen had every reason to leave me at that crash site. She was poor, widowed, struggling. But she chose love. My father had every reason to drive past me that day. He was busy, important, late for a meeting. But he chose to see. Love is always a choice. And when we choose it, even when it's hard, we change the world. The crowd rose to their feet, applause thundering through the center. Maya's voice grew stronger. So, to the young person here who feels invisible, you are seen. To the one who feels broken, you're being rebuilt. To the one who feels rejected, you are chosen. Not by everyone, but by the people who matter, by the God who created you, by the destiny that's waiting for you. She paused, emotion thick in her throat. I am living proof that your beginning does not determine your ending. I am living proof that what people call a curse can become a crown. I am living proof that you can rise. The entire auditorium erupted. After the speech, Maya was surrounded by young people wanting to share their stories, take photos, and thank her. She took time with each one, looking them in the eyes, listening to their pain, offering encouragement. One girl, about 16 with a burn scar covering half her face, waited until the crowd thinned. Miss Maya, yes, sweetheart. I've been planning to end things because I can't take the bullying anymore. But today, hearing you, I think I want to stay. Maya's heart broke and healed simultaneously. She pulled the girl into a tight embrace. Please stay. The world needs your story. I need your story. You are not an accident. You are a purpose waiting to unfold. The girl sobbed into her shoulder. Thank you. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for not giving up either. That evening, Maya, James, and Mrs. Helen sat together in the estate's garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. I'm so proud of you, James said, his voice thick with emotion. Your mother would be too. Mrs. Helen squeezed Maya's hand. You become everything I prayed you would be, and more. Maya looked at both of them, the father who found her, the mother who saved her, and felt complete. I wouldn't be here without either of you. You taught me that family is built on love, not just blood. That worth is inherent, not earned. That survival is only the beginning. How we choose to live afterward is what matters. She stood, looking out at the gardens, the mansion, the life that seemed impossible just 2 years ago. The girl they called cursed is now calling others blessed. The girl they rejected is now creating spaces of acceptance. The girl they said would never amount to anything is now building a legacy of hope. She turned back to them, tears of joy streaming down her face. This is what redemption looks like. This is what happens when you refuse to let pain have the final word. This is what rising looks like. James and Mrs. Helen stood, and the three of them embraced, a family forged not by conventional means, but by something stronger, by sacrifice, by mercy, by love that refused to quit. And as the sun set on that beautiful evening, Maya whispered a prayer of gratitude for the crash that should have killed her, for the scar that led her home, for the suffering that became her strength, and for the two people who proved that love can indeed conquer all. The end. Moral of the story. True worth is never defined by appearance, poverty, or people's opinions. Sometimes the scars life gives us become the keys to our destiny. Kindness, sacrifice, and love can rebuild what was lost, and the rejected stone can become the foundation of a new beginning. Your circumstances are not your conclusion. Your pain can become your purpose. And your story, no matter how broken it seems, can become someone else's hope. Keep rising. Keep believing. Keep loving. Your miracle might be just around the corner. Thank you for experiencing Maya's powerful journey with us. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and comment below. Subscribe to our channel for more emotional, life-changing stories that inspire, challenge, and remind us of the power of human resilience. See you in the next story. Glowing Star.